Okay, now we're on the second part of the intervention plan template. And there's a couple of things I wanted to say about this. So don't get too caught up in this area where it says priority for OT intervention. It doesn't have to necessarily, these are just ideas. Is it an occupation, like dressing? Is it a performance skill that you want to work on, like fine motor skills? Is it some other client factor, or do you have a definition of what you want to work on? So some of you identified anxiety. Okay, so as I'm going through and planning this, anxiety might be enough in that we just want to control and not have him be so anxious. But I think in terms of for Glenn, anxiety, it's just not about anxiety, but when he gets anxious, his problem solving skills decrease and he kind of breaks down. So you could consider, you wouldn't have to, but you could consider making it more specific in terms of interfering with problem solving skills. Apparently I can't type and talk at the same time. Okay, so we have that. So once you have a pretty good definition, you can start looking at interventions. Now, if as you're looking at interventions, you're really struggling or you feel like it's not quite fitting, maybe you're just having trouble finding interventions, or maybe you need to look at what is your definition. Maybe that's not quite right, and so you're not finding the interventions that you're thinking you should have. So the other thing, when you're looking for interventions, you can try the text. The text doesn't get real specific. So that's why I added the other website. So I'm going to pull those up here just a minute. So in Blackboard, there's a link. Let's go in there. So I make sure that okay. Sorry, I should have had this. I didn't plan this part. Mine looks a little bit different because I don't have it in student view. All right. So go under interventions. And here's the interventions plans website. There's a link for mental health specific interventions, but I also included the interventions like as a whole. Those are all the interventions. It's also, this same list is included under your groups in OT theory and practice too. So let's just focus on mental health interventions. It'll download and then you open it up and here you have it. So you're gonna have to copy these because some of them would make a link and some of them just wouldn't. I'm not sure why. But go through and look at some of these. They may have strategies for managing anxiety, which is what we're looking for in this instance, but there's a lot of different resources. Now, they're not going to give you step-by-step treatment of how to do it, but it gives you an idea of what's out there and what you might be able to do. So I'm going to close that out. All right, so, if I were doing treatment with Glenn, one of the things that I really think is a problem for him is once he starts to get anxious, it kind of snowballs, and then he isn't able to problem solve, and then he gets more anxious because he knows he's confused. And so if he can interrupt that process, and we know he can, because he did it when he was singing the opera song and forgot the words, and he just stopped and he thought about it. He didn't let it snowball and decompensate, and then he couldn't think at all. He stuck with it. So I think that he's capable of doing this. It's really just highlighting that he's capable of doing this. And so one of the things I would do is just some patient education, really pointing out that that happens for him, and that pointing out that he does have the skills to be able to figure things out if he just takes the time. Reminding him of that and that he said that. So that might be one intervention. There's a lot of interventions that you can have that can help to manage anxiety. But really the thing is, his anxiety is what's getting in the way and actually makes his problems worse. So he's anxious about forgetting, and then when he gets anxious about forgetting, then he forgets more. So that's my hint on that. Just look around at those websites, give yourself ideas. The other thing is, it doesn't have to be these huge programs of what you're doing. It may just be something simple in terms of doing some staff training on Alzheimer's. They've had training, but sometimes it's reminding staff about some of their training, and sometimes it's doing training specific to Glenn himself and what he needs. So that could also be an intervention, and it's certainly an intervention that an OT does. You don't have to come up with all these wonderful new programs. In fact, you're not going to be able to. Use what's already out there. And I would say this is where your clinical reasoning and your activity analysis skills come in. Think about the activities that are going on, and think about the problems that Glenn has, and thinking about how you can change the activity or how you can help Glenn in some way. Analyze that activity, and that's where you're going to get your interventions. Okay, so hopefully this helps some. I'm also available. We can do a video chat, we can do a phone call, whatever works. I know a lot of you have turned in your first attempt at the interventions. I want to just give you reassurance that if you get a grade on your intervention that isn't passing, I'm going to allow you to resubmit that for additional points. And by that I mean, if you redo the intervention plan and you get it to a point where it's a passing, we will give you that passing grade. I understand that online is not the same as being in class, and so it may take us a couple more times to really get through and get those skills down. And also understand you have 2 intervention plans, and that's designed that way so that this first intervention plan is designed to give you practice and run you through that process before you actually have one that you're going to do more on your own. So I'm available to help with this intervention plan. Please utilize me. You have to let me know. I don't know whether to call you or to video chat with you, and I don't know whether you need that process or whether you're understanding it and you're just fine. So please reach out to me if you're struggling. I'm available to help. So also, after you've watched these, please give me some feedback on whether this is helpful or whether you need something else. Or maybe, if you don't want the videos, just don't watch them. But please let me know if these are helpful or if I need to look into something else to explain some of this. All right? I appreciate your feedback, and just let me know if you need help.